UFC 303, Conor McGregor versus Michael. No, no. Sorry. That's not happening because McGregor pulled out. Here I am thinking that's something that the Irish could never do. Look, this is wild. It's not the fight we signed up for, but it's one we're getting. Procházka versus Pereira. Switch that the other way around. Ooh, it's coming around the second time. But why are the fans so eager to see it again? It's a good question, and we're going to be getting in it today. My name's Sai, and we're going to be going through UFC 303 breakdown of the full main card. Usually I do it with my boys Ash or JK, but unfortunately they're not here today. Ash has fallen a little bit ill last minute, but also JK is off in Glastonbury. So for those of you guys who are not in Glastonbury, don't worry. You're in the second best place in the world right now. You're right here with me. So let's have a look at that fight card real quick. What's coming up next over the next probably 30 minutes with me? We're going to talk about Ian Machado Garry. He's going to be fighting Michael Page. That's the first up on the card. Great start to an event, to be honest. Go free is off to a flying start already. Then we're going into the women's division with Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. Fun to say that one. Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze will be up next shortly after that. Quite a unique bout. Another pullout there. Carlos Ulberg was supposed to be fighting, but Roman Dolidze stepping in on 8 days' notice. But also the fact that it's at a higher weight class. How is it going to perform? I'm not too sure. Lots to get into on that particular fight as well. Co-maining this card for us tonight, boys and girls, will be Brian Ortega and Diego Lopes. Should be good. Could be a grappling affair. Could cancel each other out. Who knows? But, of course, the moment we are all waiting for is Alex Pereira versus Jiří Procházka 2. We're watching it again. It's actually a pretty good replacement fight for, given it's a last-minute switch to a card, which was supposed to be McGregor. But look, are you mad at it? Are you mad at it? What we're getting is still quite good, isn't it? Well, let's start off with getting right into the breakdown. Quickly right now in the chats, if you can, write down what is your potential fight tonight and your reason why. I'd be keen to see it and read it and get into that as well. But let's start off as per red corner. We have Ian Machado Garry. Now he's 14-0. This guy has never been defeated. Some have said he's a little bit like the Conor McGregor coming in because he's so ballsy. He's got attitude. He's a bit of a hothead. But he's 6'3". He's got 74.58 reach advantage. And he's fighting out of Ireland. Now in the blue corner, you have MVP Michael Venom Page, 22-2, 6'3" as well, so the same height. However, he's going to have a little bit more of a reach advantage. Never mind, this guy covers a lot of distance at such short amounts of time. He has a very spring in, spring out ability, and he's quite electric on the feet. Some might say he's kind of Stephen Wonderboy-esque, but on another level. The UFC have not seen a problem like this guy yet. But with that being said, it's a heck of a way to start a card, in my opinion. This could easily be a co-main to the night, in my honest opinion. It could be a main card if it was drawn up later down the line. But he's got to be the only person on earth who's not actually interested in it. I'm talking about Ian Garry here. In an interview he had a lot earlier in the week, he said he was talking about how he's gone on from fighting the 15th to the 8th in the world in terms of top in his division. But he's got no interest in fighting number 13. That's MVP right now. No, he personally thinks that either himself or Rachmanov are the only two people in the division that could actually be able to beat Leon Edwards. So what's your take on that? Do you think that's true? Do you think there's going to be other problems in this division as well that could give Leon Edwards a little bit more of a run for his money? But also, do you think this fight started too early? Do you think it's happened a bit too early? My take on that whole idea is these are two prospects building a career for themselves. They're doing beautifully well in the UFC. Of course, Michael Venom Page has just entered, and like I said, he's a problem. And you got Ian Garry, who's just got his sights set above, and he wants to get her as soon as possible. Now, we both want to see these two guys do well, questionably for some of you with Ian Garry, but we want to see how far we can really push them and how far they can get. Now, to meet at this point in the rankings, it might be a bit too early. I'd love to see it when they're battling out in top 5. They get a couple more wins under their belt, make a whole main event out of it, big card out of it. That would be awesome. So are the UFC blowing their cards a little bit too soon? That's a big question there to consider also. But how's this matchup going to take place, right? Look, you've got the style of MVP, which is, as I said, lightning. He's going to be shooting in from the outside, and he's going to be working mostly at range. And you've got Machado Garry, who's got his leg kicks. And I think that's probably what's going to be most compromising for someone like MVP. And he should absolutely be looking out for that. So that's my take as to how it's probably going to be running throughout the fight. Machado Garry's going to be putting together his leg kicks and his striking a little bit nicer. There's going to be some good cadence to it. And MVP is going to be picking his shots, working on the outside, and just trying to spring on in and catch him. My honest opinion or my honest advice for Machado Garry is just take a look at the blueprints of what's compromised MVP before in the past. And on a few occasions, we've seen it. It is those lower leg kicks. MVP needs to look out for those lower leg kicks because Machado Garry can use them as he springs in. He can really compromise that entry and look to catch him as well with a knockout blow perhaps or something to follow up after. So that's my take on how I reckon it will go. But let's have a look at those gauges and who's got the advantages here. Now, this is really tough. I'm going to start with the grappling one, and I'm going to give that one straight over to Ian Garry. No, that's the wrong way. Ian Garry. And that's because he's going to use it if need be. MVP, I've never really seen him lean on it at all. Against Kevin Holland, he was on his back for a little bit, and that was probably the worst he was doing in that fight. All of his success came by way of striking on the feet. So trust he's going to want to keep it there. Striking, I think I might have to go Ian Garry with striking as well, just because Ian Garry's got the hands and feet. He can really put it together. He's got quite a few. But then again, if you've seen some knockout leg kicks from MVP, they are absolutely silly. So it's really difficult. I might even have to change my mind on that again and go MVP with striking, just because he's so slick and good with it. Now, power. If you talk about raw power, I think Ian Machado Garry's got a little bit more of that. But if you look on paper, MVP's got more knockouts. And also, MVP's got that technique. The power of his comes via technique. He's able to spring in from outside and just get the damage because he's really manipulating his movement in it. Look, one way or the other, he gets the job done. MVP, for me, gets power too. Now, speed. How do we pin this one? MVP gets speed. Tell me otherwise. Tell me otherwise. He's fast. He's rapid. We've seen that speed. And up against Kevin Holland as well, he maintained that speed. Cardio is difficult too. MVP's been there a few times. Machado Garry hasn't really shown signs of fatiguing. His high output too. So combination striker. It's just tough. It's a real ugly one, guys. I don't know if that is right, but that's not wrong either. You know, we're looking at MVP he's fast. He's been able to knock people out because he manipulates that movement really well. Striking wise, his highlight reel is an absolute masterpiece if you've seen it. And then when it comes down to cardio, you can't deny the guy. He's been there enough times. Maybe might lean towards Ian Garry as well. So I might go two ways on the cardio. But what's your take on it? Put your comments down below. See if you agree with me or if you think otherwise. I'd love to find out. But that's my hot take on the first fight up of the night. Let me take you guys back, shall we? Women's bantamweight division. Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. The fun one to say. I do feel like I'm French when I say it. And she is not even French. She's from the United States. I'd love to get a backstory on that one day. Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. In the red corner, 10-3-1 is Bueno Silva, fighting out of Brazil, 5'6" and 66.5-inch reach, not advantage, just reach. If you want to talk about advantage, you got to trip on over with me to the blue corner, and that's Macy Chiasson, 10-3, and fighting out United States, 5'11", so she's going to be the taller fighter, and that's by about 5 inches. And aside from that, the reach advantage is 6.5 inches, so that's going to be pretty superfluous to this fight, I think. I reckon that's probably how Macy Chiasson's going to want to be fighting. But, if you want to know the first thing about Macy Chiasson is, yes, she has the reach advantage in most of her matchups. She's a problem. She's long. But she never really uses it. Why? She's quite a diversified striker. She likes getting in close. She likes to brawl with people. And to that extent, she's able to still get the job done. She's like an incarnation of violence. It's wild. She likes to get close. She can't even keep herself from getting close to opponents because she's got those looping shots, which are devastating to a degree. Then you got Bueno Silva. She's someone who's very much comes out the gates like a bat out of hell, spends all of her energy in the first couple of rounds before taking that time to, well, hold on to you and wind the clock later on just because she's so gassed. So you've got a brawl happening here, basically, is what I'm trying to spell out for you guys. And I do think this could be a finish in this fight as well, to be fair. We might get a finish everywhere up the card, in fact. I'm not entirely sure. But let's take a rewind back to that fight with Bueno Silva and Pennington. It was a 3-round fight. If it was a 3-round fight, then absolutely, I do think Bueno Silva would have beat Pennington. Yeah, she would have, by far. She had those first 2 rounds. The problem was, after those first 2 rounds, she showed reckless disregard for her corner advice, or even her cardio as well. That's the question. Does she get back to a submitting waist tonight, or is the range of Chiasson, Macy Chiasson, going to be too much for her? The problem is, yes, the range could be a problem, but Macy Chiasson, I don't think will use it. Pennington managed to submit Chiasson, bear that in mind, and Silva had nearly subbed Pennington in their last dance as well, quite a few times. So I'm thinking she will be able to get close and she will be able to get her down. If Pennington can, there's a good chance that Bruno Silva can also. Now for Chiasson, this is a real big opportunity. She's going to be jumping from 7th to 3rd with a good win here. She has shown her all-round ability in her stand-up. But, you know, I continue to say I'm really worried that her willingness to brawl probably get into really big trouble here. Does she keep it standing, or does she kind of back her abilities on the ground and really mixing things up in that close range? It's dangerous to say. I do think Chiasson should probably take a more rest and stay long and really poke the bear, if like that is Bueno Silva, throughout the 3 rounds. That will probably be her best bet at it. But it's really difficult getting her to change her ways once she's set in them. Gauge's time. Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. How do you think this matches up? What do you guys say? I personally am going to go striking for Macy Chiasson. I think this is, well, let's put it on the right side. This is probably fitting just because we do see that stand-up ability. We do see a lot of her finishes coming by KO. Say a lot of them. 30% of her finishes have come by KO, which is also the reason why I'm going to have to give her a power. Let me just jump over there and give that a little tick as well. But if we're talking about actual strength here, Bueno Silva is someone who loves to be physical with her opponents. So grappling would be Bueno Silva. And speed, I would have to go to Macy Chiasson. And cardio, you will be having an absolute bomb if you think I'm going to touch Bueno Silva with cardio. Largely because that last fight against Pennington, it did annoy me a little bit looking at round 5, how she lied there with hands behind her back, letting Pennington kick at her for a finish where she was 2 rounds in the bag. She just needed 1 more round in order to get the title. And she sat there with her hand behind her back, getting kicked on the floor. Cardio's not going anywhere near Bueno Silva after the second round of that fight with Pennington. She really went downhill. She's a 2-round fighter in her. Now, this is a 3-round fight. So Bueno Silva only needs 2. Yeah, quick maths. That being said, Macy Chiasson can do some damage in the second and really take over in the third. So I think the fight is going to be for the second round for Macy Chiasson. She really is probably going to be the most active round between either of these girls, in my personal opinion. Okay. Enough of that being said, that's what I'm sticking it on for this one. Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. In the red corner, Anthony Smith, he's 38-19-0. Fighting out of the United States, 6'4" and 76 inches in reach. Blue corner, Roman Dolidze, he's 12-3-0. Fighting out of Georgia, 6'2", 76 inches in reach also. So the reason why I'm picking this out is because we want to be looking at where these guys' strengths lie. Now, if you remember what I said at the front end of the show, something really key about this is, yes, Roman Dolidze is coming in on very short notice, 8 days, in fact. And it's because Carlos Ulberg had pulled out. And this really is going to be his entrance into the light heavyweight division. It's a high entrance fee as well against a gatekeeper in Anthony Smith. So I don't think this is at all easy for Dolidze. 8 days training for it. Of course, you can imagine the reason it's at light heavyweight is because he couldn't cut down in the time that he had. Very short. But is this how you want to be getting into the light heavyweight division on 8 days notice, and bearing in mind the fact that you're already on a 2-fight skid? A third one's really not going to look good when you're looking at the UFC brasses. I get that the UFC do like to keep favors in mind, and I do feel like Dolidze must be doing UFC a favor to be taking this up at such short notice. But let's have a look at what advantages Dolidze does have, because he's a well-rounded fighter at middleweight. He's got great wrestling, he's got good striking also, and he can put them together so well. What I do think is going to work mostly for him is not going to be either of those areas in particularly, but it will be his ability to draw out strikes from Anthony Smith and counter over the top of him. I think he can probably play a game like that. He's not going to be looking for a knockout, but he can point fight to the end by putting pressure on Anthony Smith, but also fading away and answering back with the 1s and the 3s in the striking sequence. I think that could probably be powerful for him. Over for Anthony Smith, though, I think the difference between Anthony Smith versus Khalil Roundtree and Smith-Petrino fight, that was the last time he came out, it was when he wanted to press the pace against Khalil Roundtree. Break the will of Roundtree was the goal. But when it came to Petrino, he's just inching the jab, striking back, and setting up the counters. So it's very different. It's almost like he took lessons from the Khalil Roundtree fight and brought him into the Procházka fight. I know, right? Wild. The point is, it's a really good idea for fighters to be adapting and learning each time. But what style do you think he's going to equip himself with today? I have no idea. Don't even ask me that. Say today, on the night. So, look, I do think that Andy Smith's got two ways of really approaching this. He might have in the back of his mind, this guy doesn't even belong here. I'm going to be a brutish gatekeeper and just get him out there. It's tough to say. But let's get those gauges up and have a look at where we're at. So, this is fight 3 on the card. And let's see. Striking. I'm going to have to give this to Dolidze. He's going to get striking, in my opinion. Grappling. He's at this weight class. It's got to be Anthony Smith. Power. For the exact same reason. He lives at this weight class. I think he's going to have that advantage there. Speed, you'd only imagine coming up from a lower weight class, you're going to be a little bit faster. So I'd love to see how he's going to apply that in this fight tonight. Again, just tapping ones, fading away, coming back with freeze. And cardio, this is probably the hardest one to pin. Both of these fighters have what I like to call grit, a will to win. Easy way of putting it. You got the lion heart. It's literally in his name. He's got his lion heart to continue. And then you got this Georgian is literally in his DNA. You know, it's in his blood. We've seen how other Georgians in the UFC have just done it beautifully. Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria, you know, we can go on. All right. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Give it to the guy who's got in his DNA, Roman Dolidze. But this point could probably go either side. I'm not entirely sure. Now, on the night, will I go for Roman Dolidze also? Nah, I'll go with Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith will get it done. Roman Dolidze is coming in, doing a favor for the UFC. I'm not entirely sure he's going to get the job done, per se. That's my take on it. All right, shall we have a look at what's next? Bear with me. Co-main of the event, featherweight division, we got Brian Ortega coming out against Diego Lopes. This is quite a good fight. In the red corner, you got 16-3-0. That's your Brian Ortega, 5'8" and 69-inch reach. In the blue corner, you have 24-6-0. This is Diego Lopes, fighting out of Brazil, 5'11". He's going to be the taller guy, and he's going to have the reach advantage also. But how is he going to be using that or applying himself in the octagon is the big question. Let's have a quick look at some of the wins by or striking significance. But I think where we're going to enjoy most of our time is going to be here in the grappling exchanges. When it comes to takedowns, I'm not sure if these numbers are right, but one thing I do know is he doesn't necessarily initiate them. That more comes from Ortega. Diego Lopes ends up on the ground for a fair bit, but it's because he's got this reckless striking. It's so inviting for grapplers to shoot on him. And what they don't realize is Diego Lopes welcomes it wholeheartedly. His skill set is just about there. It's beautiful. It's almost like call an ambulance quick. Not for me, but for you. Because by the time they're down there thinking that they've got him, he's snuck something in on them. In that Evloev fight, I can say it right, is just superb. If you go back to look at what that looked like. So, for example, right, I had to go all the way back to the Evloev fight in order to find some information useful enough on how Diego Lopes is going to be approaching this fight. Because in his recent 3, he's just been stopping, finishing, and putting people away. It's been fantastic. He's rising quite fast. And this fight will chuck him right into the 3rd slot from 14 to 3. You don't see many jumps like that. In fact, these days, yeah, you probably do. Now, here's the thing. Evloev, no doubt, did weather the storm of Lopes. He did a great job weathering that storm. However, he even went down and grappled with him despite nearly getting submitted on those few occasions. So this is where I can learn quite a bit about about Diego Lopes. I wonder whether Ortega will think the ground is a dangerous place for him in this fight, or whether he thinks he can handle it. But seeing how Evloev struggled and he nearly got submitted, and look, don't get me wrong, we have seen Ortega come over some adversity, like a fight against Alexander Volkanovski. He nearly got choked out in that one, but he pulled through. That was remarkable. About Ortega, we absolutely got the absolution we needed the last time we saw him fight Rodriguez. He weathered Rodriguez beautifully and methodically submitted him as well. So that confirms for us that he still is that guy. But he's also talking about going up a weight class. Yeah, Ortega wants to go into lightweight. What do you guys think about that? He said that after this fight, he wants to step into lightweight. But it baffles me just a little bit because he's only been stopped by the absolute best in this division. He's not losing to just anyone. He's not been I guess he's quite rarely fought, hasn't he? But I think he should stick around. Absolutely stick around. Depending how this fight against Lopes goes, though. Because so far, it's only champions, it's only the best that has actually been able to scratch Ortega or for him to lose to. So I don't know why he's seeing this huge mad rush to get out of there. But in any case, yeah. In his last fight, he weathered Storm Rodriguez, as I mentioned. In this fight, let's say if Rodriguez is a storm, Diego Lopes is like a tropical cyclone, let's say. Yeah, it's deadlier, it's dangerous, more dangerous, and he's got that power too. Speaking of which, just get those gauges up to see how that looks. Here it is, co-main event, striking. Who am I giving that to? Yep, I've made my mind up. It's definitely going to go to Lopes. I just think that Lopes, yeah, he's got this, he's got torque in his hands. In fact, while I'm there, let's get power. He's got a lot of torque in his hands. Like we saw him knock out, but also drop his opponents at such close range. Like he's right in front of those looping shots, and he's really compromising his opponents with that. Not even at full range, not at the optimal peak point of reach. It's really in close off of a hook. This guy's got power in his hands, and one of the scariest to ever do it. He's a pretty scary guy. Pretty violent. Grappling might even have to. I'm going to say Ortega. I'm going to give grappling to Ortega. And the only reason I'm doing that is because Ortega uses it for his advantage. Diego Lopes tends to use it as a defensive mechanism. Someone else is taking him down. Now he grapples. He doesn't use it offensively to take someone down and then grapple with them. He tends to just react to it rather than initiate it. So that's why grappling for me was going to sit with Ortega. Although on the ground, I do believe Lopes could be particularly tricky. He'll be a problem for Ortega. It might not be a wise choice for Ortega. Speed, yep, I'm going to have to hand that right over to Lopes also. He's going to get that one. And cardio, I might have to say Ortega because he's been there more. He's been up there for longer. And I've seen that as of late, Diego Lopes has been stopping people in the first round. And historically, what we tend to see with fighters that get the job done early on is they fall in love with that they forget that fighting does take work, patience, and endurance. And so falling in love with a knockout in the first round often drives them to seek it more. That euphoric feeling that they get after getting the finish early on and realizing that, they got paid the same amount for a quarter of the work, 1/3 of the work, sorry. So he might seek that again. And in doing so, forget to pace himself and be exhausted come later on in the rounds. A couple of reasons why I'm giving cardio to Ortega, but one of the predominant ones is he's been there more. What do you guys reckon? Pop your chats below. Let me know. All right, let's go back to the fight card. This next tail of the tape is going to be in the light heavyweight division. And it's the moment we've all been here for. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. Alex Pereira versus Jiří Procházka. Bear in mind, this is happening again for the second time, if I haven't mentioned it already. Now, in the red corner, you got 10-2-0. That's your Brazilian, 6'4", 79-inch reach. And in the blue corner, you got 34-1. 6'3" and 80 reach. So not a lot in it, to be fair. But we do know that Jiří Procházka is the longer fighter. And we do know that Alex Pereira is the close range fighter because most of their power comes from different stances. For Alex Pereira, his power comes from the close range. He needs to be on the end of his looping hooks for that. For Jiří Procházka, he's well out in the distance and he jumps into range and he starts running through you with wild shots that shoot from the hip, untelegraphed. It's difficult to see. So both these guys have power, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think patience and composure beats wildness over time. And Alex Pereira is poised and dangerous, and Jiří Procházka is wild and dangerous. So what you'd see is, yeah, if Pereira can play the long game, he can find his opportunity a bit sooner. But the thing about being wild is it's rolling the dice. You're a wild card. It can happen at any point. How many fights does Jiří Procházka have to have with Pereira in order to catch him and get that win? Could it be 3? Could it be 4? Could it be 5? Could it be 2 out of 5? Could it be 3 out of... You know what I mean? It's difficult to say, but you're rolling the dice each time. More so with these wild cards, that's why you call them wild cards, these wild fighters, more so than more predictable strikers. Now, look, I mean, it's not the fight that we were hoping for at 303. I get that. But it's the fight that we got. Question for you guys, boys and girls at home, is are you mad at it? Should we talk about McGregor's absence or the reasons, or is it still a little bit too touchy of a subject? Apparently, Pereira trained through a broken toe injury in sparring. That was after the Jamal Hill fight. So that's pretty interesting. Get it? I do believe there's different stages. He's healed now, and Conor McGregor still obviously is not. But the fact that Pereira pushed on through that is pretty remarkable also. Like I've seen this fight before. Apart from the most intense stare down in fight history, if you guys remember how that looked in the when they stared up in the octagon, I do wonder why the fans are so excited to see it again. And the only way I can answer that is I think it's probably because both these guys had an opportunity, had a chance in the first fight. I think Procházka was winning until he wasn't. You know, Procházka looked really good having Alex Pereira up against the cage and making him anticipate what's happening next. I think in this fight, he might even go back to doing the same thing of what works. It's the takedowns, it's backing Pereira up against the cage, and it's giving him a lot of different looks. So he's overloading his central nervous system, so he's not entirely sure as to what's coming next. Now, if Procházka does that to his best ability and effect, he's got a chance of really sneaking in those strikes and compromising Pereira, probably getting that finish he's hunting for. But I said that last time, and I'm going to say it again. Procházka would be in for a rude awakening if he thinks it can be safe to keep his hands down and keep him low against someone like Pereira. You know, how do you teach an old dog new tricks? I don't think he's going to change that. He's probably going to add something a bit more to his game. But if there's one thing, I just wish he has a hand up and has a bit more defense. That'd be great to see. Look, we know he's not going to change his style, but he's probably going to go back to doing more of what worked last time and getting more takedowns, because the longer he can hold Pereira on the ground is the more he's going to mitigate that risk of actually getting struck or getting caught in the feet. So I do think he's probably going to be taking a fight there a little bit more often. We could find a more boring fight than the first time round, which would be a bit of a shame because it's only got Conor McGregor to blame. All right. Striking wise, who gets that? I really want to say Pereira, because those leg kicks are going to be compromising and the hands are good. But then again, you've got Procházka. This is tough, actually. Really tough. I'm going to have to use the what's on paper to help me out here. If we're talking about knockouts, Jiří Procházka has 87% of his wins by knockouts, and Pereira has 80%. Procházka does have a lot of knockouts. I'm going to give power to Potan. I know on paper, it does look like Procházka would have the advantage there. Yes, granted. But when you're looking at raw power, the fact that Pereira can generate that much power at close range as well tells me that he's just got that running through this guy's blood. And with Procházka, it's a little bit about manipulating that movement to get it. The distance you're covering and where you're striking, throwing that punch from. Speed-wise, though, this is tough again. Pereira, oh my goodness, this is really difficult. Okay, speed, I'm going to go and give it to Pereira. He's got those fast hands. Now they don't come straight, they're looping shots, but they are pretty rapid. Grappling-wise, that is going to go for Procházka. He gets grappling. And striking, Procházka or Pereira? Procházka or Pereira? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to give Pereira to striking to Pereira, but we are going to give power to Procházka. I don't know if you guys agree on this, but on paper, he does have more knockouts by way of, well, more wins by way of knockouts, sorry. And around the same average fight time too, between these guys. So look, I gotta go with what's on paper. Power goes to Procházka. Now, cardio. I'm gonna give it to Potan, I believe. Oh, man, this is probably the toughest one. I really need a second on this one. I'll go to Potan largely because yeah, look, he's been there on a few occasions. He gets people knocked out before then as well. But I'm just thinking about that fight against Glover and Jiří Procházka. Jiří Procházka was so gassed. And I just feel like someone like Pereira's got a bit more of a ability to manage that. He can manage those systems. He can manage his cardio, he can manage his output, I believe. So that's it for me. I do think that's probably how it matches up. On the night, I reckon I'm going to go for Pereira again. I mean, yeah, I do. I think Pereira might. It's wild to say Procházka, but Pereira will confidently get the job done over time if he's just a little bit patient. My big question is, where's Ankalaev, though? I would have thought Pereira, by this point, would be fighting someone else in this division. That's a problem. And Ankalaev is that other person who's a problem. I don't think him getting past that particular issue. But look, I think in this fight, we're going to see a little bit more wrestling from Jiří Procházka. And in that sense, we're going to learn a lot about how to get those takedowns. And I think that'll be useful for Ankalaev. Should Potan somehow get a win, Ankalaev will, when he later fights him, be using this fight as a bit of a blueprint to go by, perhaps. The do's and don'ts. So that's all we got time for. Thanks for stopping by. My name has been Sai. Here's the fight card once more time for what's coming up this weekend. Don't miss it. Do come over to ATF and watch it with us. Don't watch alone. Always watch along. Here's that fight card one more time as a quick, decent reminder for y'all. As you can see, Alex Pereira and Jiří Procházka, and also the co-main Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Things you are not going to want to miss. Make sure you join us at 3 a.m. EST. So that's going to be Sunday morning, 3 a.m. Or Saturday night, as you guys know already, 10 a.m. ET and 7 p.m. for those of you guys who are ET on the far side of the States from where we are currently situated. So if you're over the pond, if you're on this side of the pond, do tune in. Do not watch alone. Do watch along. That's what it's all about. But guys, you've been great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your chats. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your love. But for now, love, peace, chicken grease.